and nor are her tracks. Lovely information from Snoopy in Woodstock about the tortoise beetle, which I'm pretty sure we don't get here. Wonderful stuff about how the tortoise beetle uses or creates a shield of fecal matter and exoskeleton remnants that it carries around on its back as a defensive mechanism. That is fascinating. I'm not aware of any beetles out here that do that, but I could be wrong. That's a lot of beetles eating a lot of dung. And they play an extremely important role. I'm not sure if you've heard the story before, but in Australia, when they imported all the sheep, you've often seen those caricatures of Australians with hats on and the corks flapping, and the corks were there to try and get rid of the flies. Now the flies were there because of the sheep. We've got some wildebeest here. We're going to stop and have a look at them. Oh, this is actually quite interesting. So we'll look at those two first. There are actually three here. I'll just quickly tell you the dung beetle story. And in Australia, the sheep put dung everywhere, and obviously there are no natural dung beetles there in Australia. And so they imported a whole lot of South African dung beetles to eat the dung, and in so doing reduce the number of flies that the Australians have. And it apparently seems to have paid incredible dividends, been a remarkable success. So these two wildebeest look like cows. Now, oh, just Wium, can you go across to the bull quickly? He's just marking his territory. He's doing it with the glands on his head and the glands in between his toes. Now, I'm really glad to see this because I wanted to go and smell what it smelt like. I've been asked fairly regularly what it smells like where an antelope marks territory, and we'll go and have a smell just now. I may have to chase him off, but I don't mind doing that. This bull, the last time we saw him, was totally alone, and he seems to have found himself two girlfriends. So now he'll mark his territory and make sure that he try and keeps them in it. And they're substantially smaller than he is. He's a good sized bull, that. Now this is the same species that migrates across the plains of Serengeti in such enormous numbers, 2 million of them at a time. And they don't do that so much here. In fact, they don't do it at all here anymore. Slightly different subspecies, the one in East Africa, it's called a brindled gnu, and it has a white beard underneath, where this one has a black beard. We'll just go around the other side of them, try and get a slightly better look. Really delicate affair, scratching your eye with something like a hoof, I would have thought. You can see how nimble she is. Right, let's just go around the corner, and if that bull moves off, I'm definitely going to go and have a smell at where his the hooves in between, the glands in between his hooves have been marking. Hello. Go on, move off. All right, in order to expedite this process, I'm going to go and smell. He is going to move off when I get out of the car. He'll probably look fairly terrified, but he'll come back. Don't worry, he won't be adversely affected. Right, Wium, here I go. If this turns out to be the only nasty wildebeest in the world, will you please save me?
I'm gonna film it.
Right, here he has been marking, and I'm going to smell. No. Absolutely no smell at all. Now, I consider myself to be somebody with a particularly sensitive nose, and I stuck my nose right on the ground there, as you saw, and I smelt nothing. So, we as human beings obviously have a far less sensitive sense of olfactory, or far less sensitive olfactory sense than most of the other animals out here, and so that's probably why. It's also probably because I'm not programmed into the pheromones of a wildebeest, right? And it's probably quite important that only the specific species that he's trying to mark for can smell it. Otherwise, he might attract the attentions of predators. So that's what my postulation is. I'm rather disappointed by that because I thought maybe I'd be able to smell it. Anyway, I'm not a wildebeest cow, thankfully. Yeah, maybe you should have gone to do it. Your nickname's the wildebeest. Right, on we go. There's a kudu just up front. Magnificent kudu bull there. Look at that. Isn't he great? 1, 2, 3. He's probably about 5 years old, 2.5 full turns in his horn. Disappearing off into the bush. And there's some more here to the right of him. 2 more there. 2 youngsters following the big bull. Some nice information there from Karen, thank you, about the origins of the name Wendy. You say that there were only, that Wendy was named for because she's apparently the ultimate vehicle, and there were only 50 of these BMW Land Rover Defender 90s made with a 2.8 litre engine. I, Karen, am going to beg to differ with you there. I think there were far more than that made. But you may be right. But apparently, Graham, who's our chief executive and the brains behind this operation, was buying another one of these, and she got away. And this one came along, and so she was named for the one that got away, Wendy. I'm still confused as to why Wendy is an appropriate name. So I think maybe we should suggest some more sort of rugged Land Rover-y type names for her. Now there's another kudu coming across here, much more nervous than the others. The others have just kind of followed on behind the big bull that went first, and this one's moved quite a long way away from us. And you can see the different shape of the horns. Much a wider spread, but definitely a younger one than the one that went into the bush. Now, if you were a hunter and it was your bent and you were quite mad enough to think that sticking the kudu's head on your wall was a good idea, that would be a more attractive one because its horns are wider set. It gives you an idea of how seemingly ridiculous the trophy hunting industry can be. Right, that was the kudu. We have seen the wildebeest, and they actually come, I've learned recently, from a different family. Hello, Ruth in Costa Rica, and Pamela. Pamela, you wanted to know if those are blue wildebeest. They are blue wildebeest. And Ruth, your original supposition that they were called wildebeest, meaning wild beast, is in fact totally correct. The reason I say wildebeest every so often is because that's often how people who don't speak Afrikaans would say it, because it's spelled W-I-L-D-E. B-E-E-S-T. And so if you were just reading it as an English-speaking person and you didn't know anything about Afrikaans, you might say wildebeest. Gnu is the more sort of English term for it. And we've got some zebra up ahead. Hello, Joe in Wales. You'd like to know if just while we look at this rather magnificent painted horse walking through here, you'd quite like to know if I have ever eaten dung beetles, given my propensity to try things out in the bush. Hello. Joe, I have not eaten a dung beetle, and I shall never. I'll tell you why. Dung beetles don't only eat dung, they also eat carrion. And I have picked up a dung beetle once and held it close to my face in order to observe it. And it had clearly been sitting on a very rotten piece of meat. And the smell coming off it was something to make my eyebrows fall out of my face. So I don't think that I could ever actually bring myself to eat a dung beetle. I think that would be particularly foul. Lots of zebra all over the place here. Not much in the way of leopard tracks. There seems to be a great diversity of antelope and herbivores out at the moment, which is excellent. A very lovely question about horns. And we had it in a similar way the other day, and I didn't know the answer, and I went and I looked it up. Some of the female antelope or herbivores out here have got horns, and most don't. And so the question comes, why do female wildebeest have horns, and say female impala do not, nor do female kudu? And it would seem to be, and the question was that, do they fight? No, they don't fight at all. So, the other question is, the other thing is, the only other obvious reason can be for them to defend themselves against predators. Now, that begs the question as to why do smaller animals not have horns to defend themselves from predators? And it basically goes along the following lines. A large animal like a wildebeest or a buffalo, both of them have, both their males and females have got horns, live out in the open, and they are relatively big. And so for them to stand and fight against something like a lion, actually sometimes would make sense, or against a hyena, a group of hyenas. It would make sense for them to stop and fight, especially if they're looking after youngsters. Because they can't hide, they're very large, so they can't exactly just duck into a bush. So if you look at the opposite end of the scale, like a steenbok, which is a little antelope only about that big, only the male's got horns, little horns like that, and they probably do use them a lot more for territorial fighting than they would to try and defend themselves. The defense, if you're a steenbok size, is to run away or to hide, because if you turn and face a leopard as a steenbok, you're going to meet a very sticky demise very fast. So the short answer is, if you're big and obvious, it pays to have horns for the females, because they're not used only for hunting, at least for the males to fight each other. They're used for defense. Lovely question, thank you. So we're just doing a circuitous route down and round towards the waterhole. Hello Angela and Barton. You want to know, why is it that those wildebeest ran away from me? It's because I'm a particularly terrifying human being. No, I'm not really. It's because we as humans are the apex predator, and that's how all the animals out here see us. And if they can't get away from us, that's what they'll do. They'll only ever become what people call aggressive if they become cornered. So I mean, a wildebeest is an extremely powerful animal that could do some heavy damage if it chose to, but they'll always choose to run away because they see us as the apex predator. So we've got the definitive answer for why Wendy has got such a seemingly naffy name for a Land Rover. Peter Braut, who's one of our WildEarth directors, a remarkable man of exceptional intellect, he has said that Wendy was the original name given to Wendy by her first owner.
Nyala.
So what have we got?
Nyala.
Oh, we've got a Nyala. So that the name's just never changed, and that's why she's called Wendy. Perhaps the original owner named her for his mother or something. There is a Nyala. We really are getting quite a diversity of antelope today. Beautiful in the setting light. The young Nyala cow, some other youngsters behind her. And we've just seen those zebra, and you can see the stripes, very similar kind of, same reason that the zebra have stripes. It's not so much camouflage, because if you look at them carefully, what is the first thing? In fact, let's ask everybody, what's the first thing you see about that Nyala? What's the most obvious thing on the flanks of that Nyala? Just look at it, don't Don't Google it. Just look at the Nyala and tell me what is the first and most obvious thing that you would see driving past here if you saw that Nyala. Hashtag Safari Live, quick as you can. Or questions at wildearth.tv if you're emailing. As the Nyala disappears. Still, keep watching and see what you can see there. What's the most obvious thing that you can see? And while we're waiting for some answers, you can just see her browsing away there. Any bit of greenery, any bit of green leaf, they're going to search for, and it's going to be extremely hard as it goes into a dry season after a particularly dry, wet season. So it's not going to be an easy few months for them going forward for the next little while. That's a lovely picture there, and that's a really nice indicator of what the most obvious thing you can see there is about them. Because I tell you what, with your eyes, if they had an absence of one color on them, we wouldn't see them nearly as easily as we do. All right, well, we'll leave them to themselves, and I will give you the answer to my little quiz a bit later. Let's just have a look at this little nest here. See it there? There's a nest in this tree. I'm just going to get out and have a look at it. This is more than likely a blue waxbill's nest, and a blue waxbill is a little finch-like bird. What's it called in Afrikaans?
What? Blue?
Blue waxbill, blow swaysie, something like that.
No idea.
Anyway, the Afrikaans name, if I ever remember it, is a very good one. And that blue waxbill very cleverly builds its nest there in order to avoid predators. So if you're a predator and you wanted to eat a small blue waxbill, which was a finch, you would struggle to get into that tree. And the main thing that's going to go after them are things like boomslang or tree snake, which will go in and pick the chicks out of the nests. And also, probably there are a few birds that parasitize them, and they've probably adapted those nests in order to stop the brood parasites from going into them. There are two Bateleur circling high above us, which I'm afraid we won't be able to film for you, but if they move, we'll get them. It's a couple. Right, on we go. We're heading towards the Gari waterhole to see what we can see. And if there are no sign of leopard tracks after that, we'll probably head back towards the lions and see if they haven't started to move. Hello, Rocky fella. Nice question. Do we get eland in the Sabi Sands? Now, an eland, for those of you who don't know, and as Rocky fella has pointed out, is the largest antelope that we get in southern Africa. And I'm just going to stop here and let Wium, should we tell you what, Wium, let's go into the clearing here maybe. Or have you got them there? There's some Bateleur that he's going to try and track, and while I talk about Rocky Fella's question, which is, do we get eland here? A beautiful antelope, quite closely related to the kudu. And we're struggling to find those birds. And Rocky Fella, yeah, they've gone too high. Sorry. We don't get eland here, and the reason we don't get eland here, I mean, we might get them once every 10 years, they'll pop through, is there's too much water. So they've been out-competed in an area like this where all the landowners have sort of created their own little dams, which favors things like impala and zebra, and they then out-compete everything else in the area. And so that's why we don't really have eland. They like to be in areas that are a bit drier, where they can get away from the water. So the general consensus from Ginny and many others is that the stripes are the most obvious thing on those Nyala, and you're absolutely right. So why have them? The question is, why on earth have stripes if it makes you obvious to look at? If they were plain brown like an impala, they'd be more difficult for us to see. And the answer is, of course, the same as a zebra. The most obvious thing about a zebra is the white color on it. And if your predators are colorblind, then of course, and they hunt at night, then of course that white outline breaks up your shape. And we see in much better detail than lions, even though they don't see, even though their ability to see contrast, light and dark, is better than ours. So that sort of shape, all those white stripes, break up the shape and make it difficult for the lions to catch them. And that's why they have stripes, same as with a zebra. So we're going to go across to Brent, and I think he's with some predators. That sounds exciting. See you now.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we are now with the Nkuhumas pride. So James came to check on them earlier on in the drive, and so neither of us had to spend all afternoon with sleeping cats. We're going to take it in shifts this evening. Now, I've been watching them. There seems to be some interest every now and then. They're looking across the valley towards Quarantine Clearing, and there's possibly some animals there that we can't see, so we could be looking a little bit of movement a little later. So they have got up and moved a little bit, not much, but they are looking a little bit more active than they would be earlier in the day. So I can only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members of the pride from here. How many can you see, Bryan?
Only 5.
Only 5. I think the others are lying in those quarry thickets behind. But just look at that beautiful late afternoon night in Junior's face there. He has some oxpeckers in the drainage, and that if we pan up to the other female, she's showing, listening, like there may be possibly some animals with those oxpeckers, and she's listening quite intently. actually one of the other lions is coming up through the bush as well. Here we go. Looks like one of the young females, sub-adults now. Oh, there we go, a little bit of greeting. And these little greeting ceremonies and social grooming session in lions are so important. Being the only social cat, or truly social cat, these little greeting and grooming sessions help establish the bonds of the pride. It keeps the pride as a tight-knit group, because when lions feed, as we all know, they can be very, very nasty, and they forget all their table manners. So they get very aggressive with each other, and a lot of the scratches and scars you see on lions and on their faces is actually caused by pride members rather than other lions. And they forget all their table manners. So they get very aggressive with each other, and a lot of the scratches and scars you see on lions and on their faces is actually caused by pride members rather than other lions. And it's actually very seldom, and only when forced to, will lions actually fight with each other. Most of the time they get away with a lot of posturing, a lot of roaring and making noise and scent marking, and that sort of keeps the boundaries most of the time. And then obviously there are the rare occasion where there will be an epic battle, specifically when coalition males get old and are forced out, or when young males get too old and get kicked out by the coalition males. Hi, Jimmerlin from Oklahoma. Jimmerlin would like to know, do any of these cats ever wander into the local villages? And if so, how do the local villagers handle this? Isn't it very dangerous with small children and kids running around? Jimmerlin, it does happen from time to time. They do escape the reserves. Unfortunately, in a lot of circumstances, these animals will get shot then. Normally the villagers will contact one of the conservation bodies and they'll try dart them and relocate them. But on other occasions, if they do get out, they do get shot. In this part, in South Africa, it's a bit different. We don't have that many free roaming lions outside of your large protected areas. But in places like Botswana and Zambia and Namibia and northern Mozambique, the villagers deal with lions on a daily basis, often taking their livestock and in some areas even taking their lives. And there's quite a lot of information and documentation on man-eating in Africa. And we'll go into depth about that a little bit later. But in this area, Jimmerlin, generally we will call the vet and hopefully we'll be able to dart them and move them back in. And the villagers, well, hopefully someone before they get to the village finds where they've broken through a fence and escaped into the sort of local population. Hi, D. Phillips, who's contacting us via the Twitter sphere, this sunset safari. D would like to know what are the main predators lions have to watch out for? Well, definitely other lions are probably the biggest threat to lions, but above and beyond that, the only real predators to lions are humans. I mean, occasionally hyenas, if they catch a sick or wounded animal by itself. And then when they are young, when they have young cubs that are left hidden away while the mothers are out hunting, there almost all the other predators will take an opportunity to remove a lion from the system, so removing a bit of competition. So leopards, hyenas, cheetah, even probably your smaller predators like jackal. I have heard of lion cubs being taken by martial eagles before, but that's very, very rare, unusual. But pythons have been known to eat baby lions. Here comes the next one. So I think that's full complement now. So going back to man-eating, it's quite a sometimes controversial topic, but it is something that happens in Africa from time to time. And the most well-known man-eaters, and we had quite a discussion about them with us, that the movie The Ghosts in the Darkness was based off, and that was the man-eaters of Tsavo, and that happened in Kenya. Very little man-eating actually happens in Kenya these days. The countries where man-eating still happens quite regularly, well, with lions in particular, is Mozambique and Tanzania and Zambia to a lesser degree. But northern Mozambique and southern Tanzania, there was a big spout of man-eating in the early 2000s around the Rufiji River Delta and Rufiji River on the edge of the Selous National Park, and it was a young male lion, and he didn't appear to have any particularly bad injuries or broken teeth or whatnot. It's more than likely the fact that the local farmers had sort of encroached onto an area that had been traditionally bush, and he would have been pushed out of the pride by one of the main coalition members. So he was a nomadic lion, and he would have wandered out of the reserve into this farming area, which up until 5 years ago would have still been a wilderness area. And people tend to remove a lot of a lion's natural prey from these areas, so the bush pigs and impala and wildebeest and zebra and all the other things that lions eat, and were probably all gone. And so this young male lion took to eating people, and he was actually nicknamed Osama after Osama bin Laden, because he was very, very difficult to find. The Tanzanian authorities searched for a couple of years, and I think he had about 15 or 16 definite confirmed kills before he was eventually shot. Northern Mozambique as well, but in these very rural areas of Tanzania and Mozambique, a lot of the stuff doesn't get reported. It's just one of those things about living in those areas, and also with your traditional hunters who will go out quite often illegally killing various things like eland and sable and whatnot to get the meat ready for transport, often over a long distance. They will dry or smoke it. So what happens is they end up sleeping around a large amount of meat, and obviously sometimes always some meat goes off, and that sort of smell would definitely attract lions. So they put themselves in danger like that. But most interestingly, and probably the largest population of man-eaters ever, is actually forms part of the area we're in at the moment, the Greater Kruger National Park. So there's the border of Mozambique, and during the Mozambican Civil War, there were thousands of people trying to get out of Mozambique into South Africa, looking for a better life. And obviously the vast expanse of the Kruger National Park was one of the boundaries that was least protected from a military point of view. And so you had lots of people crossing, and various prides of lions actually started specializing in hunting illegal immigrants as they crossed the Kruger National Park. So to the South African government at the time, to then curb this influx of illegal immigrants, posted military bases and patrols along the boundary. And to try counteract this, the immigrants then decided that they were going to walk at night. And a lion at night is a very different animal to a lion during the day. And that ties into the whole story about why it's actually quite safe and we walk lions regularly. It's because they have an instinctive fear of the bipedal figure of man. Modern day man and modern day lions both evolved at around the same time, around 200,000 years ago. And we were in direct competition. So a lion during the day will 90% of the time try and move away from you, whereas at night you definitely fall within the food chain. And that's one of the reasons we instinctively want to sort of get where it's safe and go home and go back to our cave when it's dark. And that's because instinctively we know we cannot compete with the other predators out on the African savanna. And that's all evolutionary stuff, which is actually changing in humans, which makes it so interesting. But back to the man-eating lion. So they estimate between 25 and 45,000 people have been eaten by lions along the Kruger National Park boundary. There's a very interesting, there's a couple of interesting books that have been written about it, and I think 1 or 2 documentaries have been made about it as well. So what they used to call the trek from Mozambique into South Africa was jump amajozi, which basically means jump the fence to Joburg. And it was taken by many thousands of Mozambicans. Many have successfully crossed, but there were certain prides of lions, particularly in the central part of the Kruger, where there's a big power line that runs from Mozambique, from a hydroelectric plant that side, through and right across the middle of the park. So obviously, as someone who is an illegal immigrant trying to get across this vast bush, and a lot of people wouldn't have the best bush knowledge, they would try to get onto these power lines and follow them, and this pride of lions basically just used to walk along picking them off. And there's lots of horror stories from sort of the 70s and 80s of tourists in the park picking up very scared Mozambicans who the rest of their party had been eaten by lions. Very interesting topic, if not a little bit controversial. Okay guys, so we're not going to move, we'll stay here with these kitty cats. Hopefully they'll get up to a bit more mischief later. I'm hoping they move towards quarantine clearings where there might be some potential prey species there. But lovely late afternoon light, and I'm quite sure Commander Bond has been up to mischief and has got something interesting for you. So we're going to sit here and we'll be back with you a little bit later in the show.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy. I find myself unable to say that name now without feeling a slight curling of the toes. You find us here in the setting sun at glorious Buffelshoek Dam. And I greet you with the news that Bob's girlfriend is back. For those of you who are new, Bob is the bachelor of Buffelshoek. He is the larger hippo that you can see there, and he's been alone for many weeks. And about a week ago, 4 days ago, we saw somebody had joined him, or something had joined him, and it turned out to be another hippo. And then she disappeared. He obviously said something. He's inexperienced in the ways of women, of course, so he probably said something offensive, and she went off. And now she's decided to give him another chance, and so I'm going to extol him not to make the same mistake twice. There are also a whole lot of beefalo bulls around the place, and they're just sitting chewing their cud having a drink. Right, now D from Ohio, you've asked an interesting question. What part of Africa are we in? I'm going to try and draw you a map in the sand. These buffalo may attempt to I think they'll probably just move off quietly. If they don't, I'll get back in the car really fast. Wium, keep an eye out, please. Where is the best spot to do this? How about here? Wium, can you see me here?
Yeah.
Right, will you keep an eye on the buffalo?
Cool.
Right. So, I will try and draw it from your perspective. Here is Africa. Can you see that, Wium?
Yeah, South Africa is underneath the vehicle.
Oh, okay. So we need to do that again. Is that okay as
Yeah.
the base? Right. So here's Africa. The horn up and around like so. That's Africa, everybody. North is towards the buffalo. South is the direction I will run if the buffalo come after me. And here is South Africa here. There's a section there. This is obviously not a particularly wonderful drawing. Okay, so that's basically where South Africa is. The US here, Australia down there, Britain over here. Right, so that's Africa. Now we'll zoom in a bit. South Africa is the following shape. It's Cape Town. It goes along like this, up to Namibia. Something like that. Okay, don't laugh at me, Wium. This bit's a bit higher. There it does something like that. Now the Kruger National, here's Cape Town here. Johannesburg is over here. And the Kruger Park spreads down the side of this part of South Africa like that. Okay, and this is Mozambique over here. And we are sort of in the middle of the Kruger Park there. Right, makes sense? Got that? Right, now I'll bring the scale down even further. I'm not a very good artist, so I must apologize. The Kruger Park is the following sort of shape. It's got a boot out like that, and goes up like that. And this is the Mozambican border here. And the Limpopo River runs like that. Now there are a whole lot of private reserves on the side of the Kruger National Park. Over here, that's the Sabi Sands. That's the Sabi Sands there. There's the Timbavati or the Manyeleti there, and the Timbavati a bit further, and a few others. The Sabi Sands sits on top of the boot like this, and we're in the middle of the Sabi Sands. This is not actually very well to scale. And then often I'm asked, what is the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park? And that's this whole area inside Mozambique, down the sort of length of the Limpopo River. And I think it comes off about there. So all in all, about 3.5 million hectares of land. The Kruger's only 2.2. The Sabi Sands is 60,000. And the little bit where we are, called Djuma, is 1,500 hectares. And that's that little dot over there. So I hope that explains kind of where we are. Please excuse my art. It's not very good. The only comment I ever got in my art classes at school were his work lacks finish. In my opinion, it lacks a beginning. There were some tracks of a big male leopard coming down towards the water, but no sign of him here. Now you can see there's an important lesson here apart from the geography one I just gave you. The buffalo moved off when I got out of the vehicle. Now, the big brave hunters of Africa will tell you that the buffalo is the most terrifying animal in the world. Well, those buffalo that I got out of the car here in front of were no more than 30 meters or 90 feet away. And when they saw me, 5'8" and 67 kilograms of me, they disappeared around the corner. They are not inherently dangerous at all. They are dangerous if they are threatened and if they are cornered. All animals out here will by default move away if they can avoid conflict. And it's such an important thing for us to realize, because we come out here and we tend to be, I don't know, stuck in this paradigm that we're threatened and we need to be, a lot of people who come out here and think, well, you've got to go out with a rifle, you've got to go out armed to the teeth with possibly with a cannon on the front of your vehicle. You don't. You just have to understand animal behavior to a certain extent. Yes, there are certainly incidents when animals will behave in an unpredictable manner, and that's why I was very careful when I got out of the vehicle. I didn't just sort of step up to them. But as soon as they realized that I wasn't a threat, they just moved off quietly, and they weren't about to come charging after us. And it's an important lesson, that. So I'm just going to be quiet for a little while. I've been yakking at a great volume. And let's just listen and enjoy the last embers of the day, or the starting of the last embers as the sun goes down there. Hoping against hope that a leopard might come down to drink. Pretty sure those were Mvula's tracks. And there's buffalo doing what I like to do at this time of the day, and that's sit and ruminate over life. I don't mean it in the literal sense, of course. I only like to chew my lunch once. Just hear the francolins and the arrow-marked babblers making their sort of... They're all getting used to getting around the trees that they're going to roost in as soon as the sun goes down, and they call to each other and chatter away. And the buffalo don't like to move in the heat, so they'll move off and start to graze for much of the night, I'd imagine. Bob and his new bow are feeling a little bit bashful. The bashful bachelor of Buffelshoek and his bow seem to have disappeared down under the water. There they are. Just popped up there, and I think we'll leave them to their romantic sunset interlude, and we'll go for a little drive and see if we can't pick up on the tracks. We just sit here a little bit longer. Hello, Eugene at Alberta Plains School. Sorry, not Alberta Plains. From Alberta, Canada, at a school. Eugene, you want to know what the mass of an adult male hippopotamus is. An adult male hippopotamus can weigh up to 2,500 kilograms, which is absolutely massive. So Eugene at Crawford Plains in Alberta, Canada, 2.5 tons is what a big bull hippo will weigh, and the female's up to 1,000 less sometimes. And can you see those little droplets in the water that looks like rain? It isn't rain. It's not raining at all. Those are just sort of little gas bubbles coming up. Mzi on Twitter. I wonder if you're my friend Mzi. I somehow doubt it, but it's possible. You're my new friend then. Mzi, you want to know if buffalo kill. Well, you've seen a documentary where buffalo bulls or buffalo herds are killing baby lions, and you want to know if they're doing that to eliminate the sort of further future chances of predation. That's exactly the correct interpretation of that, MZ. That's precisely why they do it. And they will do it to adults too if they can get hold of them, but obviously trampling cubs is a lot easier than taking on a fully grown 180-kilogram male lion. So the sun is just starting to peep down over the horizon there. Hello, Gracie at Dayton Children's Hospital. You were aged 8. I'm sure you were aged 7 last week. I wonder if you've had a little birthday. If you have, happy birthday indeed. You want to know if Bob and his new beau might stay here and have babies. They might. I think it's more likely, Gracie, that they will go and join some other hippos in some bigger water where they can get more protection from being in a big group. I am guessing a little bit, Gracie, that the smaller one is a cow or a female, but it's possible that they could settle down in this Buffelshoek waterhole and have a little family to themselves. Yes, it's quite possible. Right, we're going to go across to Brent, who seems to have be back with the lions. It's about this time of the day that they'll start to move with any luck, so maybe you'll be lucky and see them on the hunt with Brent. I'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. We're still with the lions. It sounded like some impala alarm calling towards Wildebeest Dam, and some of their heads popped up and they started listening quite intently. So we're just gonna. I was hoping that they might spur some inquisitiveness, but they're slowly losing attention to those impala alarm calling again. Can also hear some elephants way in the distance, sort of around Twin Dams. You can hear elephant trumpeting around Twin Dams Road, quite close, I would say, to Gari Dam. So zoomies, keep a check out. Maybe if the elephants arrive there, we can let James know. Hi, Dweja from Crawford Plains School in Canada. Dweja would like to know, are lions strictly carnivores or are they omnivores? Dweja, they would, what you would classify as almost strictly as a carnivore. They might eat a little bit of grass when they've got a bit of a purely carnivores and purely meat-based. I mean, they don't eat any vegetables. I have seen lions once or twice sort of pick up a marula and start chewing on it, but I think that was more from interest or playing rather than actually wanting to feed on it. The temperature's dropping quite nicely at the moment, so I'm hoping that'll entice the lions into a little bit of movement. Hi, Lynn, who's contacting us from the Twitter sphere. Lynn would like to know if I've ever seen lions from two different prides engage in a battle. Lynn, fortunately, I've seen it quite a few times. I've seen males fight, which is quite spectacular, different coalitions fighting over territory. And I've seen females fight twice. But it is a really, you can't even describe the noise. And just this incredible cacophony of roars and snarls and yelps, and it's just an absolutely amazing noise. Very, very violent. Sometimes those fights can last quite a while, but generally they're over quite quickly. And the dominant, the pride that wins will then sort of put chase to the others, and the others will try to run as fast as possible to get away. And then afterwards, they look like they're very proud of themselves. So they're roaring and scent marking and generally making a very big display. But it is probably one of the more interesting and epic things you can see when out on safari. And it doesn't happen as often as people think it does. Most of the fighting we witness is between pride members on a kill, or with the coalition members fighting over mating rights to a female. So not quite as vicious as when battling a lion that is unrelated or not part of the coalition. Hi, Kathleen. Kathleen would like to know whether the two young females of the Nkuhumas pride are now old enough to avoid being killed if there was a pride takeover. Basically, the Matimba coalition was to be ousted. I think at the moment they might just be a little bit too young. I think they probably need to be a little bit older to avoid that. What I'm going to do, guys, I'm just going to move the vehicle around, because at the moment we've got all the backs of lions' heads facing us. Hi, Nihal and Asad, both from Crawford Plain School in Canada, who's joining us on safari, this sunset safari. Well, both questions are quite related. The first is that they would like to know which is the oldest member of the pride we're looking at the moment, and how long do lions live for. Well, the oldest member will be one of the big lionesses, and it's very difficult for me to age the lioness just by looking at her. I know the lionesses in this pride range from about 4 to about 10 years old, so about 10 years old would be the oldest one. The easiest one to age is the young male, who is affectionately known as Junior, and he is just under 3 years old. Hello, kitty cats. So they seem to be a little bit more tolerant of me than James. They don't give me that terrible death stare that they seem to have given James the other morning. But lions in the wild, a lioness at the really old lioness will maybe push 15, normally 10, 12 years old. 12 to 15 years is sort of the end of days for a lioness in the wild. Male lions generally live quite a lot less than that. Sort of, if a male lion's got to 12, he's done very, very well. Normally 10, and that's due to competition with new males, younger males coming in and competing for their territory. Come on, cats. It's cool. It's time to move. They are exquisite animals. So pure power and all that latent energy build up in those muscles. You can imagine the amount of power that is within them, even though they are quite sleepy at the moment. So a general question from the kids at Crawford Plains. Well, welcome on the Sunset Safari, kids from Crawford Plains. They would like to know, why do the lions lick each other? So it's social grooming, or the proper word for it is allo grooming, and the lions do this to reinforce from a social level, to reinforce the bonds between the pride. Because when they eat, they are they lose all their manners, and they beat and snarl and absolutely give each other the gears. But so in quiet times like this, that's very important for them to lick each other to reaffirm those social bonds. And then obviously from a cleanliness point of view, it helps with ticks and fleas and other parasites. Just a little bit of cleaning, and the other lions can get to the spots that you can't get to. So there we go. There's a great example of a bit of allo grooming. So a lion's tongue is like sandpaper. It's very rough and raspy. So it will help remove some of those pesky fleas and ticks. And there we go, perfect timing. So when you see a lion doing that, she's actually using those tiny little front incisors to remove possibly a tick or a nest of fleas. So Joyce would like to know how many lions are currently in this prize. She says she can only see 7. Joyce, Bryan and I just did a good quiet, and all 8 of the Nkuhumas are present. And then Evan would like to know, what is your average pride size? Well, in the Sabi Sands, this is probably a good normal pride size. Anything from sort of, actually in this area, anything from 4 to 14 from the prides we see regularly. In other areas where you've got a lot of like wildebeest and zebra, like in the Masai Mara, the prides tend to be a bit bigger. And further east in Kruger, there's an area that has got a huge amount of general game due to the basalt plains and very good grazing. So they've got a lot of general game, and their lion prides can get up to 30, 40 even. And it all depends on the area and the amount of competition for resources available. So the prides here are normally around 10. That's about average for this area. Certain areas, prides are smaller, and there'll be quite a lot of splitting. So what happens with a lion pride when they they get very big is quite often there will be splinter groups off that pride, because hunting for 40 lions is very difficult. You have to catch big, dangerous things constantly. You can't do with kudu and impala and other smaller prey. I'm just going to grab the game drive channel for a second. James, come in. Alright, so I can hear some more alarm calls. Oh, there we go, there he is. James's alarm calls have moved more towards Gallagher Shortcut and vertical access. So I can hear some alarm calls. So James is in that area. He's going to move to that area to see if there's possibly a leopard or something else there. So very interesting. So lions are not being the most mobile, but they are being quite sweet. If we have a look at a very, very, very sweet lion pose, and you can see how close some of the bonds in the pride are. Nothing like using one of the other members of your pride as a pillow. That looks very, very comfortable. It's amazing. They look so cute and serene at the moment, but they can turn into bloodthirsty savages in a matter of seconds. So, as we explained earlier, Josh has just sent in a question. Josh, you might have just joined us and whatnot, but we had quite a long chat about this earlier. With prides fighting, what would they prefer? Would they generally prefer to avoid confrontation? They would, unless they've been pushed into a position where they really need to take over new territory, or they feel that they're being pushed by the other pride. That is when they will actually fight. Normally it's quite a lot of posturing, so roaring and scent marking and making noise, and most animals will try avoid going into a really big fight, because obviously there's a risk of injury, and obviously that will affect that animal's chance of survival. So generally they will avoid, but when push comes to shove, they will definitely get involved in a serious fight. So we've got a question from Sammy, who's age 12 from the Dayton Children's Hospital. Hi Sammy, welcome on this sunset safari. I hope you're having a good time so far, Sammy. Sammy would like to know if there's ever a case where lion prides will join together and become friends. So as I was referring to a little bit earlier, Sammy, sometimes when lion prides become very big, they split off into little groups, and then maybe sometimes in the future those will join together, so they already know each other, but even then they're not really friends for the first while. They've got to get to know each other. But what's very interesting with boy lions, so we've got one right here, Junior, who's getting to a stage now where he's going to be chased away by his daddies because it's better for him to go find his own area. So he will often wander around, and he might find another boy lion who that's happened to, and another one, and they'll join together and form something called a coalition, and then they'll be friends, and they will actually go take over things together. So I hope that helps explain when lions can become friends. Thanks very much for that question. Hi, Debbie. Just on that male lions and coalitions we've just been chatting about, Debbie would like to know, is it possible that a young male lion, say like Junior there in shot, would form a coalition with a much older male lion? Not that I'm aware of, Debbie. Normally it will form a much older male lion who's already been ousted out of a territory. He wouldn't, Debbie. There's no real reason for him to do that. So the reason young males band together, it gives them a greatest chance of taking over a coalition from older males, and also gives them the greater chance of operating and controlling a larger territory with more female prides in it. So there's no real reason for him to, because that male is old, and he's probably not in the best condition if he's already been kicked out of his pride by new males. And so I've never heard of it. I'm not to say that it's impossible, but highly unlikely. So as I said, the main reason is for the younger males to band together, so they can probably take over an area when they are slightly younger. And that means, and if there's a large coalition like 5 or 6, they can stay in charge for longer. And over a large area that holds multiple prides, with an old male doesn't really offer them any benefit in teaming up with. Haratit from Crawford Plains would like to know, how strong are a lion's jaws? Haratit, I know we've had some quite big discussions. James and I were actually discussing this around the fire the other night, because there's a lot of different information about the strength of an animal's jaws and which one's got the strongest and whatnot. But if I remember correctly, and I might be wrong on this, the strength of a lion's jaw is around 700 or 800 psi, so pounds per square inch. But why don't you guys double check that for me? What is a lion's jaw recorded strength at? And you can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or you can use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. And here we have a group of lazy lions. So they'll on average sleep for about 20 hours a day. Hi, Dennis. Dennis would like to know, when the lions are grooming each other, do they have the ability to remove the tick and to remove the ticks that are on them? They can dislodge some of the ticks and generally the ticks that are moving along. But while these lions are doing little to nothing, we're going to cross back to Commander Bond, who was following up on those Impala alarm calling we could hear around quarantine. And we'll stay here with the lions, make sure they don't move anywhere, and be back with you a little later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy. We are busy thrashing through the bush here. There have been some alarm calls. We're around the Wildebeest Dam and I found some female leopard tracks. It's too dark for us to be going out on foot, so we're just coming to look through this area. We've been following some alarm calls coming down. The camp is just to our right and we can actually hear some francolin in their alarm calling. So we're just going to follow the line of the camp and hope that maybe she pops out in front of us. Small female leopard tracks. I haven't seen them that size in this area, so I'm really rather hoping that it's old Karula, who I have yet to see. So we're just going to follow the line of the little fence that runs along this camp. Watch out, Wium, otherwise you will be left upon that buffalo thorn. Right. Apparently Wium tells me that she's really very good at getting into the camps if it is her. But there's definitely a female leopard around here somewhere. And it would be just very special indeed to see her. Keep an eye also on the Juma cam, if you don't mind, just in case she doesn't pop out in front of us. And keep looking behind us, of course, as well, just to make sure she doesn't sneak, pull a sneaky. There's a Nyala. Just going to stop and listen here. There's some thrushes calling, but they're not alarm calling. It's a normal call for them at night. Nope, nothing just yet. No obvious tracks here. The francolins are making their normal sort of din of the evening. Hello, Angela in Boston. While we look for them, I mean, we haven't seen them for a while properly, you're right. They've been hanging out in some very thick bush and also onto Arethusa quite a lot, where it's quite difficult to track them. So no luck just yet. But it was a very fresh track that we were on. I'm very tempted. I think we'll go around on the road behind, as long as you all keep an eye out on the dam cam. The general sort of direction was to the north though. So we're going to head back to Brent now while we bash about here, and if we find her, we'll see you immediately.
What flight? Welcome back, everyone. I think hopefully James has more luck tracking the leopards than I've had today. And that was in the area where I went walking, where those alarm calls are at the moment. So a little bit frustrating for me, but I wish him the best luck in finding you guys a leopard. And I can't really complain. We've got to sit next to these lions in the most exquisite late afternoon light. And even sleeping lions are awesome. Hi, Anne from Indiana. Anne would like to know what is the largest lion paw print I've seen. Well, probably, oh, that's a very, I've never really judged the largest lion paw print I've seen. The largest looking one I've seen is any big male lion in soft sand. Looks like he's massive. He's sort of got dinner plates for feet. But generally, even with different body sizes and what... Oh, there's a little cuddle with a claw. Even with body size being different and whatnot, there obviously is slight variations in the feet, but nothing hugely major once a male lion is an adult. Well, it looks like we might be getting a little bit of movements when they start doing this and playing. Hi, Laura in Michigan. Laura would like to know whether lions and leopards purr with content like domestic house cats. They do not, Laura, and this is due to the hyoid apparatus, which I've spoken about a little bit before. So a hyoid apparatus is a bone at the base of the larynx, and in domestic cats and cheetah and other of the smaller cats, that bone is solid. So in lions and leopards, that bone is elastic, and that's what enables them to roar and make long, loud contact calls. Where there is a leopard, your domestic cats and cheetah and stuff have very limited vocals due to that ossified hyoid apparatus, and that means they can purr and stuff like that, but they are not able to roar. But lions are not able to purr, but they can roar. Come on, kitty cat, it's time to get moving. Welcome Krista from Nova Scotia in Canada. This is Krista's first safari with us on WildEarth, so very, very warm welcome to you. And what a wonderful safari to start on. And Krista would like to know, what's the history behind the name of the Nkuhumas Pride? Well, Krista, Nkuhumas is the word for a tree, a very particularly beautiful tree that we get in this area. It is called a brown ivory tree. And the guides in Juma, when they first found this pride, they were resting under a very big brown ivory tree, and therefore that's how they got the name, the Nkuhumas Pride. So brown ivory is actually also one of my favorite trees in the area. Very, very beautiful trees. And if you watch a few more drives, I'm pretty sure we'll definitely show you one. Oh, here we go. So here we go. A lot of this grooming, getting up, lying down again, is a sort of a precursor to a bit of movement, we hope. Sometimes they decide to not listen to what we're saying and sleep much longer than we think they're going to. But let's have a little wager, everyone. We've got about half an hour, 25 minutes left. So what time? So it's 5:34 here. If the lions move, what time do you guys think they're going to move? Bryan and I will also have a guess, and we've done this before. And Bryan won, much to my horror and shame, as the guide. And so why don't we do that? And you can send those times. What time do you think the lion pride's going to move? And you can send that to questions@wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Hi, Marianne from the Strand in the Western Cape. Marianne would like to know, what is the purpose of those white markings under a lion's eyes? Well, really good question, Marianne. We discussed why a cheetah has dark markings under its eyes on Fireside Chat last night. Now, this is the complete opposite to a cheetah. So a cheetah, being active during the day, needs a dark patch under its eye to try avoid the glare. Whereas lion, which is most active at night, have those white things to try catch as much ambient light and reflect. So it's to help improve their night vision. Really great question, Marianne. Thanks very much for that. Thanks very much, Carol from Atlanta. According to a show done on National Geographic by a guy called Dr. Brady Barr, I actually watched that show, believe it or not, a long time ago. A lion's bite pressure is 600 pounds per square inch. And a lot of other people sending the answers in. Thank you very, very much for those as well. But there we go. Lion's bite pressure, 600 pounds per square inch. So Sharon in Pittsburgh sent us a bit more information in. Thanks very much for that, Sharon. And the hippo is probably got the fiercest bite out of all animals we see on the live safaris at 1,800 pounds of pressure per square inch. And the hyena is around 1,100 pounds of pressure per square inch. And the one who's got the most fearsome bite in the world, according to Carol, is the saltwater crocodile, which is around 3,000 pounds per square inch. Come on, ladies. Time to go get dinner.
What time's your guess?
Oh. What time's your guess?
I will say 3 minutes to 6.
I was going to say 2 minutes to 6. just to play with our old friend Murphy. You can see that beautiful orange sky behind the lines there. Another tough day in the office. But I can't be so close to you. I'm going to have to change. I should have gone first. I will go at 8 minutes to 6. Hi, Owen from Crawford Plains School. Owen would like to know, what time of the day do lions hunt? Well, lions are opportunists, and if they have an opportunity, even in the heat of the day, if an animal happened to stumble upon them, they would hunt it. But generally, they hunt in the evening, any time from now, throughout the night into the early morning and into the morning before it gets hot. So they are unable to deal with heat very well, so that's why they don't normally move and what during the heat of the day, and they use the cool of the night to hunt and to move. So thanks very much for that, Owen. Hi, Charlie. Charlie would like to know, how do you protect yourself from a lion if you are in the village? What would you do? Would it be vigilance? Uh-oh. Oh, come on. Oh, nice stretch. Come on, wake up, everyone. Time to go. Well, Charlie, vigilance is obviously the most important thing. Also, one of the most important rules in the bush is never run, because then you act like something that can be eaten. So make a lot of noise, bang pots and pans together if you've got pots and pans, or scream and shout. And most importantly, don't sleep out in the open at night. Sleep indoors behind a barricade or in a hut or even in a tent, because they're not unable to see the movement through a tent wall, so they will pretty much ignore tents. And then Sharon from Costa Rica would like to know, how many villages are around us here? Are there a lot of villages, a lot of people? Can I just give a brief breakdown of the surrounding area? So, Sharon, to our east, our the eastern boundary of the Sabi Sands Game Reserve is the Kruger National Park. So that is open wildlife, and to our north is the Manyeleti Game Reserve, so another big game reserve with no fences between any of these. And then to our south is the rest of the Sabi Sands. So in this area we have villages to our north. Closest village to us is probably Dixie. There's a couple. There's Dixie, there's Utah, and then the bigger one is Hluvukanye. And these are very much small traditional villages where people have plots of land where they grow some subsistence crops. There'll be cattle, goats, chickens, and everyone lives a relatively basic life. So water will have to be collected from a central tap and brought through to the homestead for washing and for bathing, and quite often the rivers will be used as places to wash clothes and that, and then also firewood will be collected from the bush. There will be, in the day it's changed, but the young boys after school will go look after the cows and the goats. And generally what I've noticed recently is the grandfathers also do quite a lot of looking after cows, and you'll see the old men walking with his cows. And cows are very important culturally to most Bantu cultures. They're a sign of wealth. So, I mean, even in marriages, and this happens on it every day out here, if you would want to marry someone's daughter, you have to pay something called a lobola. And a lobola, even though in this modern age is quite often paid in cash, but is gauged in cows. So how many cows are you going to give me for my daughter? And daughters can range from anything from 20 cows to 1,000 cows, depending on her social ranking and status and family and whatnot. So quite interesting. But generally in the villages there will be school, a junior school, and then what we like to call a spaza shop. And a spaza shop is basically a little shop you can get everything in. So soap, rice, tea, coffee, condensed milk, sweets, paraffin lanterns, paraffin, Tupperwares, washing powder. I've seen some very strange things in spaza shops through Africa over my life that you would never expect to be in such a place. And then normally there is a butchery / bar. For some reason they always seem to be tied together. So you have a bar / butchery where you can get drinks and some meat. I hope that gives you a slightly better idea about the village, the villages around us. What I can do, I will try to do sometime the next time I go through there, I'll take some photographs and I'll post them on Twitter. Hi Debbie. Debbie would like to know, is it true if a lion's tongue is rough enough to cause an abrasion on human skin if it was to lick a human? Not with one lick, Debbie, but with multiple licks, most definitely. Sorry guys, I just need to get back on the Game Drive channel for a second. I'll be back with you now. So enjoy watching that unbelievably beautiful scene of these lionesses grooming each other. Lee, coming. Which station was looking for an update on Bateleur? Oh, it seems like they don't want to know where the lions are. And I can still hear alarm calls down towards Gallagher. So that lion can hear that kudu alarm calling. So Sandy and Lynn say the lions are going to get moving at 10 to 6, which is in 3 minutes. And Curious One and Jimelin say 5 minutes to 6. Bryan says 3 minutes to 6, and I say 8 minutes to 6. So let's see. As I'll watch here, now that she's heard that alarm call, I think 10 to 8 minutes might be the right one. John Boy says they're definitely going to get moving 5 minutes after we're off air. I think John Boy might be right.
Most likely.
Most likely.
I'll try to be optimistic.
Well, at giving it 3 minutes to watch lions moving. So we'll sit here and keep a close eye on the clock and the lions. And we're just going to cross across to Commander Bond for a little bit. We'll be right here with the lions, waiting to see when they move.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy. She has failed to find us a leopard, I'm afraid, old Wendy. We are still looking frantically, but what I think has happened is that, and Wium would agree with this, he thinks that that perhaps Karula, if it is Karula, she's very good at getting into Gallagher camp apparently, and I think she may have gone to ground there. So we're doing a loop around just to see if we can't find her. We're still in that vicinity, and it just would be really nice to clap eyes on this famous leopard just for once. But alas, nothing just yet. We did pass some buffalo that looked pretty relaxed, but that's not abnormal because buffalo is hardly a leopard's favorite food. Anyway, so it goes. You win some and you lose some. So it's been a lovely day. It's going to stop here. Started off a very sort of cloudy and ominous feeling morning, and it was wonderful to find those lions the way we did. Great to see their tracks, and I mean, I'm not sure if you realized what happened, but I saw the tracks and said, oh, look, lions, and Wium looked to the left and said, yes, lions, and there they were. I hadn't actually seen them, and I nearly ran them over. Thank you so much for your questions, for your comments, for all of your contributions today. It's been lovely to have you along board with us. Thanks to Tara and Jean-Dre in the control room, and Brent and Andrew on the other vehicle, and of course to the inimitable Wium, who is he's actually rather an expert tracker. It's really excellent having him along board with us. So we're going to carry on looking a little bit further down the road here, and if we come up with anything, we'll be sure to cut across to you as you experience the last few minutes with Brent. So it's a very friendly good night from us, and I hope to see you in the morning, bright and early. Not bright and early, it will be chilly and fairly dark and early, but we'll see you on the morrow wherever you happen to find yourself in the world tonight. Have a great evening and see you then.
Well, welcome back. As you can see, we are still with lazy lions, and it looks like the leopards are giving James as much of a run around as they are me. But I've got a feeling tomorrow morning is going to be the day. I've got a feeling I'm going to find fresh tracks tomorrow. But in the meantime, we can look at lions that are moving almost not at all. So that little bout of grooming was very short. So, and as the clock strikes 8 minutes to, Bryan and John Boy are the only two left. No, there's a few more at 5-2.
5-2, yeah.
Yeah, but so as the clock strikes 8 minutes to, I have been shot down. Come quickly, Bryan. Just jump off the back and and run quickly, and then I'll win.
I'll pull one tail.
Bryan will pull the tail. Hi, Kathy in Florida. Kathy would like to know, what is the closest I've ever been to a lion? Well, Kathy, that's quite an interesting question. Whether it's on a vehicle, I've been probably less than 30 centimeters from a lion. On foot, with wild lions, the closest I've been charged with a charge stopped was probably about 2 meters. And then I've worked and filmed with Kevin Richardson. So there I've actually been wrestling with a lion cub. It was. I wouldn't wrestle with one of the big ones. I'm not as brave as Kevin, and I don't have that relationship he does with those animals. So with one of the little cubs I have physically had to push it away from the camera I was filming at, because it decided that our tripod legs needed to be attacked, and including that, not only the tripod legs, our legs. So that took a bit of swatting and pushing to try to keep the lion cub from knocking over the camera and ruining our shot, while Kevin was sitting talking with another lion cub. And the closest I've been to wild lion, as I actually have touched wild lions, but while they've been sedated. And the closest to a semi-awake wild lion happened to be on one of those research things. The vet darted the lion. The dart went, in vet terminology, subcut, which means subcutaneous. So it went just under the skin. So the full ketamine injection did not go into the muscle. So it was a bit drowsy, and it started moving towards an incredibly big thorn thicket. And if she had gone to sleep inside the thorn thicket, getting her out to do her blood work and stuff in there would have been very difficult. So I leaped off the vehicle and grabbed her by the tail and tried to pull her out of the thorn thicket before she did, but she was quite inebriated at this stage. So she did growl a little bit, but she was semi-comatose And so I've been lucky enough to be very close to lions in a lot of different situations. What's that tired kitty? So Matthew, who's 9 years old, from the Dayton Children's Hospital in Ohio, Matthew would like to know if one lion from this family picked a fight with another lion from another family, would the family help? Most definitely. That is one of the main reasons why lions are in prides, is so they can control a bigger area and keep the other lions out as competition. But normally the picking of the fight would be done as a group. They wouldn't really go as an individual, they go as a gang. So a gang of lions would go pick a fight with another gang of lions. But so most definitely they would help each other out. Well, thanks very much for that, Matthew. So guys, it's been a really interesting sunrise and sunset safari for us here at WildEarth today. It's been quite frustrating for me. It always is when someone else finds cats before me. But I'm very happy James did. And hopefully those leopards stop giving us such a hard time. We had tracks, so that's really positive. We know there are leopards around. Now it's just finding them. And I don't know what. I'm convinced that female can fly. Had her tracks, and then got to a nice big sandy patch, and they were gone. So I think we're still dealing with flying leopards here, but hopefully there's a lot of kryptonite in the ground tomorrow, and the leopards stay on the ground, and we can follow their footprints. So it's been an absolutely fantastic day out here. From Bryan and myself on Jigger, it's been great having you with us, and thank you to everyone in Final Control as well. Excuse me. I was going to try and fight through it, it's just not working. Thanks to everyone who's fixing gremlins and looking after all of us behind the scenes. And hopefully you're going to join us for the sunrise safari tomorrow. And hopefully we get that leopard demon off our back. So for the last few minutes, let's have a look at some lions, because I'm quite sure you're tired of looking at me by now.